I just spent the last few weeks building a directory in a way where 97% of you are going to think I'm absolutely insane. And what I did is I built a directory manually, page by page, copy and pasting information over to a WordPress website the same way that I did in 2022 with my very first directory. And that first directory still gets over 50,000 monthly visitors. So why did I do this to myself? Well, the first reason is to prove a point. If you want to build and own directories and you have no interest in learning Claude Code or Cursor, you're also not very well versed in WordPress, you get confused with all the plugins and things that you have to learn, there is a world where you can brute force this stuff, where if you're willing to do the boring and tedious and manual work that's involved, you can own a bunch of directories. Now, the second reason I did this is that there is a rare situation where this method actually kind of makes sense to do, and that is when you're just building a very small directory, maybe 200 to 300 listings, and when you frame things that way, it actually is way more simple than a lot of other methods. And I've built directories with Claude Code, multiple WordPress directories at this point, both with GeoDirectory and other plugins. And this is the most straightforward, simple way to go and do it. And coincidentally, all the directories that I've ever built in general, the two highest traffic directories I own are ones that I built manually. So the execution for this directory is really simple. It's roughly 50 pages where every single page is a state page that is a pillar page structure. So instead of having individual listing pages, you can click on a page like California and scroll down and just see this long list of haunted hotels, which is the niche that I chose to build in. And then at the very bottom of the page, a very simple internal linking strategy that just links to the other state pages. After that, I just have my home page, my About Us, and my Contact Us page. Now, real quick, the tech stack for this directory can be really simple. All you would really need is hosting and WordPress. So I use Hostinger, which I'll talk about later, but that is pretty much all that's necessary. I do use Elementor Pro as my theme. That is a paid premium plugin. I also use a couple other plugins that are nice to have, but not necessary. These include WPL import, as well as an image optimizer plugin. And I do use a good amount of AI throughout the video to help me with data enrichment automation. Now, the last thing before we jump in is at the very end of this video, I do talk about how this website is indexing after I submit my sitemap. For the first time in a long time, I'm running into some slight indexing issues. So I do talk about these challenges and how I'm trying to overcome this to get Google to crawl and index my website. So with that, happy learning and hope you enjoyed this very manual approach to building a WordPress directory. So the niche I'm building in today is going to be haunted hotels. I am going to go through how I found this, but the general game plan is to make this an affiliate play. If you're not aware, a lot of the most profitable websites, especially in the age of informational blogs, were travel websites, especially ones that did affiliate for hotels, flights, any kind of travel stuff. But let me just show you how I found this niche. So as usual, I was in Ahrefs just tinkering around and I set a bunch of filters because my entire goal was to utilize my knowledge and the trend that I've seen with some of the best niches in the world for directories, and to look for not the main keyword that everyone seems to be looking for, but to look for kind of the best local keywords, the ones that are kind of off to the side. Here you can see I have intent set to local, keyword difficulty maximum of 5, monthly search volume set to a minimum of 300 monthly searches to 14,999. And then I decided to add the word San Antonio, and I would switch this out with major cities like Austin, Los Angeles, New York. Looking at these local keywords, these city-specific keywords, can tell you a lot. If there's a lot of keyword volume for a city like San Antonio, especially if it's over 500, then I am intrigued and I would dig into it a little bit more. The general idea with these filters isn't to place some kind of hard rule that I have when I'm finding niches. It's more to narrow down and say, okay, out of all the niches that I've ever researched, there seems to be a good balance between niches that are very rankable for small publishers like us, that sit between 300 to 1500 monthly searches, that are the location-based keywords like San Antonio. So I was scanning this list here and eventually I found haunted hotels. I already pulled it up right here so we can see 32,000 total monthly searches for keywords including haunted hotels. And just the fact that there's statewide interest here with a good amount of search volume, it's already making me think, okay, this is probably going to be a pillar page, which is exactly what I was going for this video. So after I verified that all the keyword research looks good and there's enough volume, there's low keyword difficulty, there's location-based intent, I went ahead and typed in haunted hotels directory. And this is just a very fast way to find any directories. It doesn't guarantee that these directories are going to be successful, but sometimes it's just the fastest way to find a directory within your niche. And that's when I found haunted rooms Rooms America. I looked this up in Ahrefs already, and this is getting 10,000 monthly visitors. This is basically a website where you can go and book different places. And so I looked it up on Reddit and just typed haunted hotels Reddit. And the very first post here is, have you stayed at a haunted hotel? If so, when? And a lot of the intent here kind of speaks to how people looking for haunted hotels are looking to actually stay there. Now that kind of led me down this path of, well, are there any affiliate programs? And that's when I landed on TripAdvisor's affiliate program here. You can earn money by just sending this website clicks. But the point is, if I could just create a directory where people discover the haunted hotels on my pillar page directory and then click onto a link that lands on TripAdvisor, then this is arguably a way better experience, right? So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and just secure a domain really quick, and then we'll go into the data scraping, data cleaning, and enriching side of things. And as always with any WordPress directory that I build, I do like to use Hostinger for my hosting service, and I'm happy to say that this video is made in partnership with Hostinger. Always a big fan of their products, but I'm going to be going through their managed WordPress hosting, which is my go-to pick when it comes to any WordPress hosting. And we're going to go through the motions. I'll talk a little bit about the plan that I like to choose. I'm going to claim my free domain, and then we're going to install WordPress. So the hosting plan that I like to choose is the managed WordPress hosting by Hostinger. So if we just check it out, we can see that there are a few different options: premium, business, and cloud startup. I always opt for the business. In terms of the monthly visits that it can support, we see that the business plan can have 100,000 monthly visitors, which is great because any directory that I build, I am typically trying to go for over 10,000 monthly visitors. And so this is good enough for me to get started and not have to worry about hitting any limits. I also just build a lot of directories. So having 50 websites on the business plan is really nice. Don't even have to worry about it. 25 is a lot too, but it does kind of have that limit when it comes to the monthly visits here. We have free automatic website migration, pre-built templates, a free domain for 1 year, unlimited free SSL, which is super nice, and the list just keeps on going. So that's why I like to choose this one. But with that, let's go ahead and just choose the business plan here. So here you can choose your hosting period, where you can choose 1 month to 48 months, but I'm going to go ahead and choose the 48 months because I do get a free domain for a year, as well as 2 months of free hosting. Now, regardless of which one you choose, don't forget to go down to the right-hand side and go over to the coupon codes. Type in FREYCHU in all caps, no spaces, and apply this coupon code, and that will get you 10% off of your hosting plan. All right, so let's go ahead and just continue on here. So now that we have our hosting plan, we can go ahead and claim our free domain, but I'm going to go ahead and just go straight into the WordPress installation, and we're going to claim our free domain during that installation process. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the website section. Here you can see the 2 directories that I've made videos on and built in the past, but I'm going to go ahead and just click on add website here and click on WordPress. So here are the login credentials. I'm going to keep the administrator password to what it is. It generated a nice secure password for me, and we'll hit next. Now, usually I do create a blank website, but I'm going to go ahead and try creating a website with AI and just see what happens. We're going to go ahead and choose a domain now. I am going to claim my free domain here, hauntedhotelsofamerica.com. Here we can see that it is free for 1 year, and I'm going to go ahead and choose that one, and we will hit next. We do have to finish registering this domain. I'm going to black this out because it's my personal information, but let's go ahead and finish the domain registration here. So now it's installing WordPress. This is usually a very quick process. All right, it's ready to go. So this is going to be interesting because this is my first time going through the AI builder. So I just spent about a minute talking to ChatGPT to craft a prompt. So here I said create a clean modern directory for Haunted Hotels of America. It's a pillar page directory with 50 state-specific pages. Here's some information for every listing. Use the best SEO practices, use clean URL slugs, clear headers targeting haunted hotels in each state, a table of contents, and then an internal link section at the very bottom. Now let's try to create. I don't have high expectations because I did give it a lot of instructions, right? I don't really expect it to have like a full-fledged website, but if it can do this work for us, that'd be huge. That was actually really fast. That took about not even 1 minute. Haunted hotels, explore eerie stays across 50 states. Okay, we have really clean. This is like a blog kind of thing. We have a state section, and it doesn't have the states, but it does have these kind of bookings here. Let's look at the blog. I mean, the blogs are really nice. So it's a really straightforward website. I just realized that we didn't even install Elementor Pro, so it's not going to be able to use all the widgets that we want anyways. So we gave it a try and it didn't quite pan out, but the truth is I do want to install Elementor Pro and kind of design it myself. But for now, that's pretty much it on the WordPress side. We have it installed. We went ahead and claimed our free domain. We're going to revisit this because now we're going to focus on getting all the data scraped, cleaned, and enriched so that we can come back and build our website. So as always, we're going to be using Outscraper for our scraping service. And the first thing that I did even before going here was I went to Google Maps and just typed in haunted hotels. In this case, it's San Antonio. And I just wanted to see what would populate. And the challenging thing here is that there's no category for haunted hotels. If we click on any of these hotels, the category is, I believe, is just hotels. So I was thinking, okay, well, we can scrape all the hotels in America and then try to use enrich.directory, which we will go over in a moment, to basically sift through all the hotels for any kind of Google My Business profile that has the mention of haunted, like we see right here. The problem is there's like 116,000 hotels in America, and that would be insane. It would be costly, it would be time consuming. So what I did instead is I just went over to Outscraper and I just typed haunted hotels and I clicked enter. And that basically creates it as a new category. As far as locations, this is going to be a nationwide directory. So I just left it as default for the United States. And then from here, I just click on other parameters and I will just choose the following parameters here. So I have name, site, phone, full address, street, city, postal code, state, country, latitude, longitude, probably not even necessary, but I included it, reviews, photo, street view, location link, and working hours. The location link is going to be really important. As a reminder, if you do want to use enrich.directory, which is a software I co-created to basically automate the process of cleaning data. And in this case, you'll see how useful it is because we have a lot of data. I went ahead and ran this scrape once I did that. And we can see here that there is an estimate here. It says that there's going to be 122,000 places. This is often incorrect. This price was also incorrect. It kind of gives us a range here. If you're curious, this took maybe a few hours to finish scraping and the actual price was $100.05. Yeah, that's probably what you're looking at if you use Outscraper. And if we go to tasks right here, we do see that there are 33,000 rows from this scrape for haunted hotels, and it ignored 107,000 rows. Now's the time we actually go and pull this into Google Sheets. I just clicked on this button right here, and we can start cleaning the actual data because there's no way I'm creating a manually built directory for this many listings. Hopefully, this number is closer to like less than 500 is what I'm hoping for. So the way we're going to clean this data is I'm going to go through this manually and just remove really obvious listings that don't belong, businesses that are permanently or temporarily closed, anything without an address because that's kind of weird. And then we're going to run it through enrich.directory, which is this tool right here. And we're going to use the review enricher, and then we will further cleanse it down. And so the reason I'm doing it manually first is because if you do have tens of thousands of rows like I do, this could get a little bit costly. And I think this is best practices if you're following along and you want to save as much money as possible. So let's just go through the motions. I'm going to go ahead and just filter this out. I always like to start with the business status, and we're just going to basically filter this. And I'm going to remove all the permanently closed ones as well as any temporarily closed ones. So that is right here. Awesome. That removes around 1,680 rows. I'm going to remove that. And then from here, I'm just going to filter by address. And then we're going to remove any listings with no address. There aren't too many here, but we'll just remove that. Next, we're going to go for the working hours. And it appears like there are actually a ton of rows with no working hours. It's almost like to a point where I'm a little bit suspicious because it seems like only 845 listings or so have working hours. So since there are so many that don't have working hours, I'm going to try to clean this using other categories. I'm going to start with the photo. I feel like if there's no photo, then we can probably just get rid of it. That should help a little bit, not a whole lot. We also have reviews. If there's no reviews, we can remove them as well. So let's just see what that looks like. Okay. All right. It doesn't really make sense to filter by website or phone, I don't think. Just because it's a haunted hotel doesn't necessarily mean I'll have a website. So at this point, we have a lot of listings still. We only removed a couple thousand. We have almost 18,000 listings, and we have a decision to make. So we're going to have to do some drastic measures here. I think the problem here is that with a lot of hotels, after researching it more, there are people who say that it's haunted because they just say that. But then there's also people who visit it because it's an actual like reputable haunted hotel. And I think I already know that this directory should only contain hotels that are historically haunted. Like that's their reputation, not just one tourist saying that it's haunted. So I'm going to have to take all of these listings, 18,000 of these. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run them through the review enricher. It's going to cost a lot of credits, but essentially I'm going to do something like this. I'm going to type in the word haunted and I'm going to say, is this hotel haunted? And what this is going to do is it's going to go through the location link that we scraped and it's going to look for any reviews for every single listing. It's going to automate that process and look for keywords like haunted, but I can't just rely on that. So I have to find other kind of words to describe a actual reputable haunted hotel. The Hollywood Roosevelt is clearly a reputable haunted hotel that should go on the directory. So what I'm going to do is once I get the results for this, if it matches haunted and creepy, for an example, then I will keep it. If there's no mention of both, then I will probably remove it. And that's kind of the best like simple approach that I can think of. I suppose one thing that I can try before I run that, because there's so many rows, like this would take a really long time even with my tool, we can kind of sort the name from A through Z and just see if there are any like big franchises that we can just remove. Okay, so there's a bunch of Super 8s and Sure Stays. And my logic here is that if it's a major chain hotel like Sure Stay, Super 8, Motel 6 or whatnot, chances are they're probably less likely to be haunted. Like a Marriott is probably not going to want that reputation, right? Quality Inn, right? Like look how many Quality Inns there are. So I'm going to just start removing some of these and that will hopefully give me less data that I can run through the tool. So I'm going to go through that process and hopefully we'll see a lot less listings to run this through. So I spent about 15 minutes and now we've whittled it down to 7,116 rows, which is a lot better than 13,850. So now we have a total amount of roughly, right now we still have a total of around 18,000 give or take listings, which is almost half of the way whittled down. So right now I'm doing more research on different enrichment columns that I could create to kind of help me narrow down what could be a haunted hotel and what could just be a creepy hotel. So I was looking at what people said in Google reviews, and there are certain keywords like paranormal, ghost, I think is a pretty decent one, right? Ghost hunters might be interested in this. So I think both of those are actually pretty solid ones. So actually we'll remove creepy and I'll just do paranormal. So here's what I have so far. I have the keywords haunted, paranormal, and ghosts. I do feel like we're getting closer, right? If, for example, someone says it's haunted, but no mention of paranormal or ghost is there, then that could mean that it's not really what we want in our directory. If there is a mention of all three, then clearly it means that we can add it to our directory. We're going to run 3,000 at a time because that's the limit for this tool here. And we're going to go ahead and just enrich the data here. So once this finishes, I'll come back, we'll pull it up, and then we'll see what the results look like. Okay, so this is going to be exported data 3,000, and this should have some new columns right here. We're going to go ahead and just filter this, and we'll go for the haunted. So as you can tell here, there are some Boolean outputs where it says true or false. And then we have a couple columns here that explain how it came to this answer. This says reviews mention the hotel being spooky and having a haunted attraction, suggesting it's considered haunted by some. Chances are if it's false for haunted, it's probably false for paranormal and ghosts as well. Basically, as long as it says false, then I think we can pretty much remove it. This isn't going to be accurate to a T, but at least we kind of will narrow it down, right? Because again, my goal here is to basically have ideally less than 500 listings because I'm going to be manually inserting them in. It's going to be a lot of work, even with like 200 listings. Yeah, we're going to take 3,000 listings at a time and then just run it through the tool right over here. I'll let you know at the very end how many we have based on all of the listings where there's verified true reviews. So after running the entire data sheet through the enrich.directory tool here, the review enricher, now we're down to 1,200 listings. This is still a lot and I plan to whittle it down further, but definitely a massive improvement from 20,000 or 18,000 or whatever. And as you can tell, if I go to the very right, basically I just took all the ones that were true for haunted. But as you can tell in this column, it does give us some more information, and this is what I'm going to be using to clean it even further because again, 1,200 is a lot. I want to say there's probably like 300 to 500 haunted hotels in America. And the way that I'm going to do it is that I am going to take a look here. It says that many reviewers describe experiencing paranormal events. And then if we scroll down further, we can see that multiple reviews explicitly state. And then we also have ones that say one review says, one review describes. And from here, I'm just going to remove any of these that say one guest or one review mentions, because again, if only one person mentioned that there was some kind of ghost or paranormal activity, that's not enough for me to include it on my directory. That's probably not what people are looking for. And just to highlight this is the column we're looking at. So we want the multiple ones. Numerous guests describe the hotel as haunted. So now we're down to 686. And then we have some of these which say the hotel is described as haunted by multiple reviews. And then we have a couple that says 2 reviews reported paranormal. So I'm going to remove these that say 2 reviews as well, because I feel like that's not really credible enough. So at this point, we have roughly 679 hotels that are haunted here. I think I'm just going to quickly clean up some of these individual ones. It says a review directly states that the place is haunted. That's not really enough. I'll remove any of some of the guests as well. So I just spent another 15 minutes cleaning it even further. So what I did was I ended up just keeping all the ones where any review mentioned haunted and any review mentioned ghosts. That leaves us with about 342 listings, which is exactly where I'm looking to be at, because looking at a lot of different places online, asking ChatGPT, just trying to figure out how many haunted hotels, like legit ones, there are in America, it seems like this is going to be just fine. If someone is really truly trying to book a stay here, they probably want something as close to the real thing. So if it mentions ghosts, if it mentions haunted, it's probably more accurate than having a few hundred other ones that are kind of like borderline haunted. Very interesting niche, I will say. Now, the next thing I have to figure out is actual data enrichment. Back in 2022, the most time-consuming part of brute forcing a directory build on WordPress was the actual images. These images provide so much value, not only as a visual for a haunted hotel, but also the alt text could help you get more visibility and more traffic to your website. So I definitely want to have an image here. And believe it or not, back then I would literally just screenshot an image like this, and then I would upload it to WordPress. That is extremely manual, and I know I'm brute forcing this, but I think we can do this in a smarter way. So my next step right now is going to be using WPL import to import all of these images into my WordPress media library, which is currently blank. And then that way, when I do kind of manually create my listings, I can just pull them from the media library based on the alt text or the title or something like that. But this should save me a lot of time once I actually do go and build out my directory. So let's go ahead and solve that first. The first thing I'm going to do is just install WPL import. WPL import is a paid tool. So you can see here that I did pay. So I did pay $100 for this, and I'm going to go ahead and install this, and I will activate this plugin here. And now we have WPL import. So now we're going to prepare a CSV so we can import the images into WPL import with the SEO optimized alt text and descriptions and stuff like that. So I'm going to take this column right here, which is the name, copy and paste that. I'm also going to take the photo right over here and just double check. There's this one, and there's the street view, which actually kind of looks a little bit better, huh? So we're actually going to take the street view instead because it looks a little bit nicer. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I brought over the city and state columns as well, because I want to alter the name tab to make it Golden North Hotel, Haunted Hotel in Skagway, Alaska, in this case. And that should help the alt text be more visible in the search engine and Google Images. All right, so I did use the concatenate function here, and you can see kind of how I broke it down. The quotes with the space gives the actual spacing in between the words. And you can see that I pulled from the B2 tab, which is the name, Golden North Hotel. I also typed in manually haunted hotels, space in, and then D2 and E2 are the Skagway and Alaska, which are the city and state columns. So that's kind of how I did it. Now I can double click this, and it should apply to all of these places, which should hopefully provide us some better visibility through search. I am going to go ahead and copy this and just paste the values only here, because these are kind of formulas, and then I'll delete that. We can remove this now. And now we have what essentially will be the alt text description. I kind of just use it for all the 3 different areas: title, caption, alt text, description. And now we're pretty much ready to go ahead and start importing to WPL import. However, there is one last thing that I do want to include, and I did this in the last build out video, but there is is a tool called EO Image Optimizer. And what this does is that when I import my images, if I have this installed in WordPress already, it'll basically resize the images as they come in. And so I don't have to worry about a lot of images just making my website slow. And that's what I'm going to do. So I am just going to quickly do this first and just install it into our WordPress website. And then we'll deal with WPL import. So because I used this in the last video, I already kind of know how to use this. I won't go through how to actually set this up, but you pretty much don't have to do much out of the box. If you don't have that many images, you can just use the free trial as well. And that will allow you to compress images for free up to a certain amount. But I already paid for it because of the last video. So I'm going to go ahead and just use the remaining credits that I have. So I'm going to go ahead and just download this CSV with my images from Outscraper. I'm going to head over to WPL import, upload a file. I am going to just upload my images CSV here. So it's going to be posts right here, set up my import, and I am going to drag the title. However, that's not really super necessary. It's more about the Street View photo. So we can go over to images right here. And from here, we can just enter the image URL one per line. And then we can go to SEO advanced options, set the caption, alt text, descriptions, and titles. Yeah, I'm just going to try and take all of these 340 or 339 images, head over here and just paste this right here. All right, so those are the 339 image URLs from Outscraper. And now we're going to take these sort of titles that we've created. Then we're going to go to the metadata section and I'm just going to copy and paste all of these and they will be set for the alt text, caption, title, and descriptions. And that's pretty much it. I am going to continue to import settings. And then from here, I'm just going to continue, confirm, and run an import. And hopefully what this is going to do is just import everything into our media library. What I also believe it will do is create posts for them, but we can go ahead and just bulk delete the posts and then just have the images left over in our media library. So here we can start to see the images being brought in. And there are some issues with the alt text, as we can tell right here, but there are some working ones as well. So I think I understand what is happening here and why there are some images that just say Montana. When you import images and the descriptions, the alt text and titles, I actually have to remove these little commas. There's a section in WPL import that tells you to separate the rows by commas or spaces. So I think what's happening is it'll take the haunted Hammond haunted hotels in Sutton, for example, but then it'll take everything after the comma as its own kind of separate description. And that's kind of what's happening. So we do have to run that back again. I will have to remove all of my images here and let's just see if it's still going. Yeah, it's still going. There's 100 imported. We do definitely want to remove that. So we're actually just going to remove all of these here. And yeah, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just basically going to run that back, but I'm going to take this column, Control F on my Mac, hit the three dots, and I'm going to find any comma and replace it with nothing. And so hopefully when I click replace all these commas here will disappear. Awesome. So I did see that. I don't know if you caught that, but all of these no longer have commas. And hopefully now when we do import it into WPL import, it should work better. So here we see enter one per line or separate them with a comma. So what I should have done was just remove the commas in the first place, or I think we can even just remove this. And let's just go ahead and just rerun this and hopefully it should work. Kind of open up the media tab here while it's bringing them in, which it already is starting to do. Keep an eye on this. All of these now look a lot better. That's the whole idea here. So there was an error where it terminated the import process, but it did get most of them, 255 media items. So I am just going to have to kind of find where it left off here and then just import the rest. So after using WPL import, I did run into a couple of snags, but we have most of the images now in our WordPress media library, 278 media items out of roughly 339 listings. So it's missing like 60 images, which is really unfortunate, but it's okay. I'm just going to continue along and we'll figure it out once we hit the roadblock. So now is when we focus on the data enrichment for this niche. And I kind of spoke about it in a recent video. The data enrichment for this niche is a little bit different. And as you can see here, I pulled up a competitor that is ranking for haunted hotels. It's one of the main competitors and it's really successful, getting over 100,000 monthly visitors. Not all of it is around haunted hotels, but if we do check their top pages, we do see that the haunted hotels page that we are looking at is the third most visited page on their entire website. And that's why I'm considering this one of my main competitors that I'm kind of modeling my directory off of. As we can tell here, there's a lot of data enrichment that's not really similar to your typical directories, just has your name, the city and state, and then this massive description. So I need to go and find a way to generate all of these high quality descriptions that tell the story behind the haunted hotels for every single one of my haunted hotels in my CSV. And I actually spent some time off camera to do that. As you can see, if I scroll to the very right, these generated descriptions are what I'm going to use. So I'm going to describe how I generated these high quality stories and descriptions for every single individual haunted hotel. And essentially what I did was I created a very simple web searching agent through Claude Code. And it's so cool that we can use WordPress for our CMS, but still utilize Claude Code to handle things like high quality data enrichment. Now, before I go into it, I do have a video that I recently made here. It's this one right here. I built a simple AI agent that saved me 30 hours of manual data enrichment. And this video kind of outlines the exact process that I did to generate these descriptions. So if you want to see this more in depth, then that is the video to watch. But I am going to go over it really quickly, just as like a quick recap. I won't go through the full process of it because that video exists. Okay, so just to recap, my two options when approaching this particular challenge was I could manually look up every single one of these hotels and then consolidate the information into a story. That was kind of out of the question because it's so manual, so time consuming. And there's clearly better ways to do it. The second option, which I think most people do, is they'll just go to Claude or ChatGPT or some LLM and just prompt it and say, hey, can you go and find the stories behind the Fort Conde Inn or Malaga Inn or Golden North Hotel? But the problem with that method is it could lead to hallucinations, and you really have to double check to make sure that it's going to pull the right story for the right hotel. And so that's why I did go to Cursor here, and I am using Claude Code as usual. And what I have pulled up is actually towards the end. I basically just finished all the descriptions, but essentially I did just use Claude Code, very, very simply set up a new project. And then I just started prompting Claude Code to create me a web searching agent that basically utilized the CSV, namely just the name, the full address, and the website. And then I would tell it to use column A, column D, and column B to make the Google search for me. And then that's how it would conduct a web search and then create these descriptions that you see right over here. This took me a while because I was learning this workflow. Again, I kind of outlined some challenges with this workflow in that video that I made. So now we're pretty much looking at the final CSV for all the haunted hotels in America. And we can see that there are roughly 339 listings. We have our generated descriptions here, as well as the phenomena types, which is just generated from Claude Code. It kind of gave me these tags here, right? Gambling, dispute, murder, speakeasy operation. I think that would be kind of interesting to include. There's one more thing that I want to do to clean this data, which is I noticed some of these haunted hotels are tours. And so I don't really want that in my directory. It's fine if it's a hotel and restaurant or a hotel and spa, as long as it says hotel. But if it says tour, then I want to remove it. So I'm just going to do Control F and just type in tour and kind of scroll to the left. And if any of these are highlighted, then I'm just going to double check and see that it is in fact a haunted hotel. So McRaven Tour Home, a history tour, haunted tour, and this one doesn't look like a hotel, so I'm just going to go ahead and remove that. So there were just a few of them, but now we're down to 331 haunted hotels that I want to include in my directory. Now we're officially ready to go into WordPress, start building out our location pages. I'll have to kind of manually design and build what a pillar page listing page will be. But before we do that, I want to decide what type of information that I want every listing to display. So if I can organize it first before I go and create the listing and then start copying and pasting this information over, it's just going to be a lot easier just to figure that out right now. So I definitely want each listing to have the name, obviously. The website, on the other hand, I actually am going to opt out and I'm not going to include it in the listings. And the reason for this is because, one, I don't really want to encourage people to go off of my website. Now, the second reason is if you visit a lot of these websites, they're not really promoted as haunted hotels. And there's not really much more information that you can find here. They're just typical hotels where you can book accommodation. And my monetization plan is to use TripAdvisor or Booking.com's affiliate program to send traffic their way and then have them book through there. That way I can get a commission and a cut and then just make more money, right? I think it's fine if I don't include it. This competitor does not include it and it's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and just leave this one out. I'm kind of iffy on the phone number. For simplicity's sake, I'm just going to leave this out as well. This is definitely going to come on the full address. I don't think I really need the street, city, postal code, state, country, or latitude and longitude. Reviews will also be left out. We will be using the photos, but we already imported those into WordPress, so I don't really need to do anything here as far as copying and pasting. So we're just going to leave this red, but it is included. Working hours, because it's so sparse, we're going to leave that out as well. I would like to include them because I think it's pretty useful, but because this is so sparse and my competitor here does not include them, I think it's totally fine just to leave those out as well. Business status, location link, these are also not going to make it. And these columns here, haunted, paranormal, and ghosts, are all the data enrichment pieces that we got from enrich.directory in the very beginning. I am going to just keep a few of these, like this one I'll keep because they're reviews directly tied to people saying that it's haunted. So that really leaves us with not that much. It's kind of very similar to our competitor here, but we have our name, our address, some reviews, a generated description, and then we have phenomena types. Now is the fun part, not really, but it is where we create the actual listing page manually. And this is what I did back in 2022 when I first built my thrifting directory that still pays me around $2,000 a month. As you can tell, it's a brand new website. I didn't really do much. All I did was create a header section. If we look at the homepage, I created a simple logo in Canva and ChatGPT, and then I just created these pages here where people can find hotels by state. There's a simple about us, contact us, and a blog page. I don't even know if I'm going to use the blog page, to be honest. That's really all the work that I did. But right now the game plan is I'm going to spend the bulk of this time creating my state pages, designing the template that will be our location page, and then do all the work for that. I'll copy and paste all this information that we just created here into our state pages. And then afterwards, we're just going to spend time doing some small SEO optimizations, crafting the homepage, the about us, contact us. And that's pretty much it. That's the entire directory. Oh, and by the way, I did install Elementor Pro, which is a premium WordPress theme that I always use. You don't have to use it. You can use Gutenberg for free if you want. And if cost is an issue or you're more familiar with other tools, then I would just go that route. I'm just familiar with Elementor Pro. So with that said, I'm just going to go in alphabetical order. So that means I should probably filter this real quick by state. So we have Alabama. But yeah, I'm just going to create these pages by state in alphabetical order and then go from there. Here you can see I already created the Alabama page. All I did was add a page up here and then it shows this page right over here. I'm going to title all my location pages Haunted Hotels in Alabama. Very simple, right? This is the keyword that I'm targeting and then the region that I'm targeting. And I did just go ahead and make sure that the slug is very, very simple. In this case, it just defaults to whatever you titled it here. And then I went ahead and just clicked edit with Elementor. And now we have a very simple blank page. And I'm just going to go ahead and start designing this. So let's get the image first. I'll just go to Unsplash and see what we can come up with. And while I'm looking for a haunted hotels image, sometimes I do like to just have ChatGPT create an image while I am also searching for one. So I just went ahead and just spoke into ChatGPT and asked it to create me an image. You can pause it if you'd like, but just very simple. Just create a haunted, hyper-realistic image in a landscape view. Should be spooky, should be haunted. This looks really interesting. Looks pretty haunted. Looks spooky. And by the way, this is the image that ChatGPT came up with. I'm going to go ahead and save this and we'll kind of see which one looks better real quick. Now, I do want to upload the image, but real quick, these are the two images that we just pulled. And if we look at the actual size of the image, it's 2.3 megabytes, which is quite large. This one is also quite large here, 2.2 megabytes. And I definitely want to reuse this image across all my location pages, and that's way too big. I don't want it to slow down my page. And the way that I would resize images back in 2022 is I would just open it up in Photoshop, and all I do here is I'll just go to image size, and I'll just make this smaller, maybe like 1,000 width, hit OK. I'll go to File, I'll go to Export, and then I'll go to Save for Web. And this allows me to basically change the JPEG to a PNG, all that kind of stuff. And I can choose the quality. If I just saved it right now, it's a quality of 30 out of 100. And you can see that it's a JPEG at 21 kilobytes, which is really, really small. Usually I go for around 50 kilobytes. I'll probably drag this up a little bit. Here you can see that now it's 28. So I guess 50 quality is totally fine. And then you can go ahead and just save this as a JPEG on your desktop. And I'll just save this here. So I'm going to go ahead and just go here, click on this, go to the background, and I will go to Classic and hit Image. Drag this in, and I'll say haunted hotels in America. And the first thing I actually want to do is just drag over this heading. I'm going to go ahead and center it and then type haunted hotels in Alabama. And I'm going to change this to a white color. Like so. And then now I want to fix this so the image shows. So I'm actually going to edit the actual header and adjust the padding there versus this background. Because if you do the background, then the header doesn't display right. So I can just simply click on this header here. I'm just going to add some padding to the top and the bottom like this. I think I'm going to make this font bigger. Roboto is fine. Let's just see what this looks like. The image is pretty solid. Let me make sure that there's no repeating because as you can tell, this hotel image is being repeated. Just click on this container and I can scroll down to this image and just do no repeat under repeat. And so it's kind of cut off here, but now we can go to display size and cover. And now we have this looking thing. And then the most important part is once you have your header, again, we're doing everything manually. So you have to assign this first header as your header 1. Now I'm just going to add a heading here. Again, make it white. Should probably just set my global font colors. For this header, it's going to be a header 2. So that is fine by default. And I can keep something generic right here, like find every haunted hotel in Alabama. Or I can try to find another keyword that's not haunted hotels because I already targeted it in the H1. So maybe there's another keyword that also makes sense to rank for. I'm going to take this competitor here. I'll stick it into the site explorer. I'm just going to look at the keywords that this page is ranking for. I kind of like this haunted places to stay. It doesn't have a lot of search volume here, but I like it because the search intent is really dialed in. So I'm just going to use this. I'll just keep it simple and just do haunted places to stay in Alabama. I am going to add some padding here. So I'll just quickly go over here to advanced and add maybe 20 to the top, 20 to the bottom. I'm also quickly going to change the fonts on a global scale so I don't have to do that manually every time. So now I'm going to drag my text editor underneath this header 2. And the point of this description is just to tell people what we did to find and verify these haunted places. And it's just more content so we don't run into thin content. Now for this description, I typically just use ChatGPT and just generate something, but it should be kind of tailored as much as possible. But since we use Claude Code, I'm wondering if we can just take our CSV here and just tell it to generate us a description for the states. So let me just try that real quick because I actually am quite curious. I just wrote a massive prompt. Again, you can pause it here and read it. But the gist here is I gave it this CSV right over here, the one that we're going to use to copy and paste. And what I told Claude Code is I want you to use the generated descriptions as well as the phenomena types and basically create like a tailored personalized summary for every single state. And I even mentioned this is going to be the first thing that people read when they land on my page. And I gave it an example, haunted hotels in California. The goal should be 3 to 4 sentences, but it's more important that you give people reason to trust us as a haunted hotels directory and simultaneously give people a reason to get excited to browse the list and visit these places. So that was pretty fast. That took around 3 to 4 minutes. And let's just take a look. So this is the file that it created for us. It has all of our states here, and then we have the hotel count and then the summary here. So these descriptions are really good. However, there's a lot of duplicate information. So I'm going to have to reprompt this and just tell it to do a better job. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue prompting. You can see I already sent one right here where I'm just telling it that it should be differentiated descriptions and summaries and just some small changes. So I'm going to work through this and just keep on prompting until the result is what I want. So just finished the second batch of descriptions here, and that took roughly 15 minutes. So I'm going to show you what it came up with. And let me just say these are so much better. They are completely unique except the one sentence where it says, you will find over 33,000 matching results if you look up haunted hotels on Google Maps. Everything else is really tailored to the place. And honestly, this is really, really solid. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring these over to my main master sheet in a new tab here titled Location Descriptions. Now we can revisit this page and continue the workflow. So I can just simply go over here and copy and paste this Alabama description, and I'll just paste it right here. And this is what it's going to look like. I do spend a lot more time editing on mobile because 80% of all of my directory traffic across all my directories comes through mobile. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and add a table of contents. And in Elementor, they just have a table of contents widget that we can drag over here. And the reason is it's a pillar page and we need to optimize the mobile experience and make it easy to navigate, especially if this pillar page is quite long. For Alabama, there's only 200 hotels, but for California, I think there's 43 or something like that. So this table of contents is actually very important. And it also is a good SEO signal, kind of helps Google understand the hierarchy and the structure of our page. For anchors by tags, I'm just going to allow it to show header 3s because I don't need it to show any other section. And I'm going to assign the actual haunted hotels in Alabama as header 3s. And so they can just navigate to it really easily. So if we quickly created a heading here, just underneath, and we assigned it as header 3, now we can have people directly kind of navigate and jump to this listing. I'm going to keep it simple and just leave it like that for now and go ahead and publish this. Now this is optional, but in my first directory, I did include an interactive map where people can see the entire state and then there's pinpoints of every single location. And it also kind of helps with the mobile experience a lot and the desktop experience where people can get a visualization of where the haunted hotels are near them. Now we can actually start creating this listing. So I just spent some time trying to design what the listing would look like, and I think I'm pretty much done here. This is what it looks like at the moment. We have our header 3 with our keyword and our city. We have an image. If there's no image, I'll probably just have to put something as a placeholder there for now. We have the address, the phenomenons reported, which is just the phenomena types that we got here from Claude Code. We have the reviews, which I also just kind of took from the reviews that we got from enrich.directory. And then we have the actual description that we generated through Claude Code, which is right over here. And I just copied and pasted those over. This is what I'm talking about when I'm saying it's very manual the way that I built my first directory. But as you can tell, I don't think it looks that bad. So I'm going to show you how I built this template just in case you want to also copy the format and structure of this. But I always recommend looking at what your competitors are doing because that will inform you of what your page structure actually looks like. And by the way, the great thing is as you build this out, you can simply just duplicate this. And now you can just copy and paste the new information here. All I did here was click on the plus icon, use the flex box. I used this little third option to the left and I went ahead and did that. From here, I basically just dragged the header here, right over here, and then I just assigned it as a header 3. Next, you can just add an image. And in the media library, I have all of these images, right? So if I just typed in like, this is for Hollywood, then I would find the correct one based on the haunted hotel that I'm working on. And then you can simply just click into it, click select, and that should pull up the image. Next, we have the address, which is just another text editor that we can just fit underneath here. And you can just do address 123 Street, Los Angeles, or whatever it is. And I just bolded the address part. For the next part, I just duplicated this address. And here I just said phenomenons reported. For the review section, I literally just type in reviews and Elementor has a widget specifically for reviews, which is great. And here you can kind of customize it. This is by default 3 reviews and you can get rid of this Twitter icon and that will remove from the corner. You can add your review text right here. You know, if I'm just going here and I just took this, brought it back, pasted it here, that's what it would look like. My enrichment information also includes the author if I wanted to include that. You can also just get rid of the username if you don't want. This one's a rating of 1 out of 5. So if I wanted to do that, just do 1. And then here is by default a star rating. And you basically just repeat that for all of these. If you don't want 3 reviews, you can remove 1. If you want to add more, you can just simply add them. But essentially, yeah, this is quite tedious because of how many little places you have to enter information on. And lastly, for this area, it is just another text editor. And then all I did was I just took the generate description here and then just pasted it here, added some spacing just because, again, I want it to look good on mobile view. For this, I kept it a font size 15, kind of small for mobile, but I think it's fine. And then I did add some padding. I added 20 pixels on each side, right? This is what it would look like without the padding. This is what it looks like with the padding. Now, if you want to add some things to spruce up your listing, I do think that a map embed is a decent idea. You just have to make sure that it fits somewhere on your actual listing in a way that doesn't make it look bad. And you can simply just replace the location with the actual full address here. So we're just going to take this, paste that, and now you have a map embed. And it's really as simple as that. Of course, just adds on to the manual nature of this build, but if you wanted to, you could definitely do that. But the next thing I wanted to show you to kind of complete this entire location page is after you have your listings, you can now work on your internal link strategy. So the internal linking strategy we're going to implement is actually very, very simple. And here's kind of the gist of it. We're just going to take the states and basically put them at the bottom of the page. And then each one of the states are simply going to link to all the other location pages. And that's essentially going to create this spiderweb effect where Google can recognize that every page is relevant to each other. It's linking to each other. It also gives users very quick and easy access to other locations if they are traveling or in another area. Now, it's a little bit tedious and manual to do this. Before, I would just basically have to highlight a single state like Utah, click on this link, and then paste the URL for the Utah location page. And you can do that even if you don't have all of these pages created yet, because every single page is going to be the same format. It's going to be haunted hotels in the state, which means all the URL slugs are going to be exactly the same format, just with the respective state. So because we know that, you can just go ahead and do this step on the very first location page that you create. And it starts with just creating this. And all I did here was create a new section, created a flex box, clicked on this little 3-column section. You can click on these little gray squares here to adjust the percentage, and you can adjust it to say 25%, and you can have all of these be 25%, just so they're all the same width. You can then click on this section here and then simply click on center, and that's going to center all of these. From there, it's really just a text editor right here. And then I basically just went to ChatGPT and asked for a list of states and then pasted them, just making sure that they look a little bit even with the number of states that I have. And that's pretty much it. So once you get the states, you can simply just ask ChatGPT to create the URLs that are going to exist once you create these pages. And here you can see I basically prompted it to create 50 different custom URLs where the format is haunted hotels in Alabama. And I just said to basically include it for every state here. And there we go. And then I put the states and the links for those respective states in a Google Sheets. And from here, if you want, you can honestly just take Alabama, copy it. You can highlight Alabama, paste it, and then apply, and that will do it for you. And then just repeat that for all 50 states. Yes, that's really manual, but the good news is that you only have to do this once, because once we finish this, we're going to go ahead and just save this entire page template that we've created, and we'll be able to use it for every other location page that we create. So I'm going to go ahead and just do that real quick, and then I'll come back when it's finished. So that took about 5 minutes, and I have completed it. I went ahead and changed the hyperlink global color to blue, just because naturally we think of blue as a hyperlinked text. Now, the next thing I want to do is make sure this looks good on a portrait as well as mobile. On mobile, it's just a long list here, and I try to prevent people from scrolling when necessary. So I am just going to click on this gray box here, and I am going to set it to percentage, and I'm just going to do 33. And I'm going to do that for all the other ones because they're split up in 3 sections, and I'll do it with this last one here. And now we're making better use of this online real estate. It looks a little bit close together, so sometimes I'll just align left on the ones on the side just for mobile because it just gives us a little bit more room. And then the last thing that I will add is I will add a header over here. I'll go ahead and center it. And this is going to say, find other haunted hotels in America. And this is really just to direct them to click. I'm going to go ahead and demote this header 2 to a paragraph text because I don't really need to target haunted hotels yet again. So when you do create a paragraph text, it does become smaller. So you can just make it larger again. Again, make sure that this looks good on all the views. And if you want, you can just add a little text editor here and just say something like, click your state to find a haunted hotel near you. Just something really, really simple, right? Just to really confirm that these are clickable options. I'm going to go ahead and just publish that. That is pretty much it. So just looking at this, we have our URL slug that contains our haunted hotel keyword. We have our keyword in the header 1. Haunted places to stay is another keyword that's a header 2 that we also want to rank for. So it's essentially the same kind of concept as this, just targeting a similar keyword. We have a little bit of text right here, our table of contents, which helps structure and navigation. And then we have our actual listings, which are targeting the individual haunted hotels. We have the full story, the image, the address, phenomenons, reviews, and a map embed. And then we have our internal links. But that is the full process. And before I go off and start doing the very boring and monotonous work that is copying and pasting this information, I want to show you how you can basically save this page as a template and then reuse it once you do move on to the next state. So once you create a template that you like, you can go ahead and hit this arrow here and you can save as template. I'm going to name this state location page, and then I'll go ahead and check site templates and then hit save. All right, so here we have state location page. Now, when we go back to WordPress and we add a new page, let's say I'm doing haunted hotels in Arizona, and I will go ahead and edit with Elementor. And once you're here, instead of having to recreate the template from scratch again, you can simply just hit this folder icon right here, head over to templates, go to the template that you saved, and you can just insert this and hit apply, and it will override the entire design, but essentially it will import this entire template here that we just created, and then you just need to change this to Arizona and this to Arizona, and then swap out the description and of course the listing content, but that is pretty much it. And you would repeat this for all 50 states until you have a directory. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do that for roughly 331 listings, which is kind of insane. That's why vetting the idea is so important. I wouldn't do this if I had a degree of confidence that this was going to rank pretty well and get some traffic. When I was 50 hours into copy and pasting on my first website, I had no idea really what I was doing, and it's a lot of doubt and skepticism while you're doing it because it's extremely tedious. But if you want to build a directory and you just don't know the tech, this is the simplest, lowest tech way to build one. So I'm going to work on this and I'll come back once I have everything finished and then we can go from there. I just spent the last week doing all of these pages manually and I have finally finished. So if we look at all of these pages here, it is one page for every state. If we go to any of them here, then you can see that we have all of the kind of haunted hotels for Georgia in this case. And you can see how I have it listed right here. Kind of the same format as before, probably just changed up a couple things, but it's pretty much the same. However, there are a couple things that I need to fix before we move on and do the homepage and the foundational pages like the About Us and Contact Us, one of which is the actual haunted hotel images. So there are roughly 40 or 50 different hotels that don't have images, and I indicated that by highlighting them yellow. So I do have to try and re-import these images into WordPress so I can go ahead and find those images and assign them. And the second thing I'm going to fix is actually a pretty important on-page SEO thing that I kind of forgot when I was building out this page, which is just adding headers for specific cities like haunted hotels in Chicago. And the reason I want to add those as headers is because if we look at the actual keyword research, a lot of the most highly searched keywords are haunted hotels, San Diego or San Antonio, right? These are the keywords plus the city. And right now I only have the actual name of the hotel with Chicago at the end. So it doesn't fully kind of target that location specific keyword. So I definitely need to go back and add those really quick. An unfortunate thing, but it shouldn't be that bad. So I will need to go back to every single state page and create header 2s that target these types of keywords. We're on the Illinois page right now, and I'm going to go ahead and find a city like Chicago. And on the very top of the Congress Plaza Hotel, because that's the first haunted hotel in Chicago, I'm just going to create a header 2 and title it Haunted Hotels in Chicago, Illinois. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that. It's going to take a little bit of time, but I will come back when that's finished. So I opted to just add header 2s for every single city that I actually have on the directory. And that's the method I chose. I had this whole other plan where I would go to Ahrefs and figure out which cities were the highest search volume keywords for haunted hotels in a particular city, and then I would just add those, but that ended up being a lot more tedious than I thought. So I just went down the list, and as long as I had a listing in a particular city, I added it as a header 2, and that's kind of how I did it. So now that that's fixed, I pretty much have a complete pillar page directory. Now, if you're wondering if there should be a limit to the number of listings that you have on a pillar page, I do have 41 listings on the California state page, and it is very, very long. You can see in the editor, it's still loading the table of contents because there's just so much content on this page. I would say if it was more than 50, that's when I would really consider breaking up the California page, having one specific one to Northern California, one for Southern California, one for Central California. I think you just have to use your best judgment in a case like this. There's no hard science when it comes to having too many pages. As long as the experience is relatively easy to use on mobile, then I think it is okay. So now that that's finished, I can go ahead and work on the homepage, the About Us, and the Contact Us. I do have to do a couple small things like create a footer section. All I did was make a very, very small edit on the homepage where I just added my header 1 here, targeting haunted hotels, and I added the internal links, which are the same ones that you see on every state location page. So I'm going to go ahead and navigate over to my homepage, which is indicated by this front page Elementor area right here, and then we can start to make some changes. Now, typically I just manually design the homepage. That's how I've always done it. But I do want to try something since we've been using a lot more AI, and I want to head over to Claude Code, which I've been using kind of throughout this build, and I want to just give it a prompt where it basically just tells me all the headers, all of the text and copy, the FAQ sections, and anything else that I should include on my homepage to make it as SEO optimized as possible. And that way I can just essentially copy and paste it over to my WordPress website. So the prompt that I wrote was, without creating a local development server, I'd like you to help me create the exact structured text and headers that I can copy and paste over to my WordPress website. And I just kind of mentioned that this should be SEO optimized to rank for the keyword haunted hotels. All right, that took about 3 minutes, and I have the file that I created right here. So I started building out the page based on the recommendations by Claude Code, but I did want to try something else since I'm just playing around here. And what I did is I went over to Lovable here, and I just basically prompted it, and I said I wanted to create a haunted hotel directory. It should be SEO optimized, and it should target haunted hotel as well as other synonymous keywords. And it basically gave me a visual representation of what I can go and create in WordPress. And I think this is actually a pretty good method here. What's also cool is if I wanted this image in the very background, I asked it somewhere down here. I said, can you give me the image? And it basically told me where the image is at. So I can click on this little icon here, go over to SRC and go to assets. And here's the image that it created. So I can go ahead and repurpose this if I would like. So I am actually going to use this, and I will try to create something similar to what it has here because I actually like what this looks like. So I'm going to replace this image here, drag over this image that Lovable gave me, quickly add some alt text here. And now I am going to just make this much bigger. And I'll just still say find haunted hotels across America. And then I'm going to make this massive, very big. Maybe add some more padding here. All right. And then I'll go ahead and add a little text editor here. I'll turn this into a white text. And I'm just going to use the same copy that Lovable gave me, like so. Add a lot of side padding here to make it right in the middle. I do like these kind of icons here, so I will just quickly add those as well. Let's go ahead and add a container on the bottom here. I'm going to go ahead and do a grid and then go down here and just change it to one single row. And then I can change the width here. And then let's see if we can center this bad boy. Maybe like that. Okay, it's an advanced and align self center. We just type in icon. All right, this is the icon box widget. I am just gonna make some changes here. We'll get rid of all of this text right here, change the title color right here. So it's like that. I will also change the icon to be, maybe like a green. And then I'll change this icon and I'll say, I'll do a hotel icon here. And then I will change the actual heading to say 300 plus hotels. And if I'm happy with this, then I can go ahead and duplicate this and then just simply change this to like a different feature. Something like that, right? We definitely have to fix the mobile as well, because I'm sure if we toggle, this looks insane. So we do have to fix this real quick. I think that should be fine. And I do like to just check my mobile phone, just to see the spacing. Like on mobile, it's so important. If we look at the Lovable example, they did use kind of a black background, which kind of fits with a theme. Let's just play around with this actually. I will try to make the background a darker color to see. And that way we can make this white. Maybe we can even change this color to like a very dark purple, something like that. And then I will add some page breaks here. Okay, this is looking good. I'm going to add an FAQ section now. Okay, so this is the FAQ section. It's the edit accordion, and there is an FAQ schema option here that I will toggle on. Looks pretty bad if you just add it, right? So I will have to style it up. Maybe I'll even just kind of copy the style of this section and just kind of paste it here. If I go to style, border type, none. Now it's just like this. I will have to drag a text editor widget right here. And this is kind of treated as a separate widget. So I have to, again, kind of change the styling if I want a different font, different sized font. And then I can just go ahead and paste the contents. And then I'll just make it a lot bigger, something like that. And now it's just a matter of filling out the content. What we can do is just copy this little section and just paste it and then just change the content by hand. Once we do that, we can go ahead and go over to the accordion widget, which is the FAQ widget, and then we can duplicate it. Now it has the description here. I'm going to go ahead and just put the content in here and then come back once that's finished. So I just spent some time creating the frequently asked questions. The most important part is the mobile, of course. You do have to test this out. Make sure that you have a mobile device. It's always helpful to kind of compare. So this is pretty much what the homepage looks like on my phone as well. We have the section where we have some text describing kind of what we did to find these verified haunted hotels. And then we have the find haunted hotels by state that just internally links to all of our state pages. And then lastly, some frequently asked questions. I don't think it's really worth spending too much time on the design, especially if you don't know if it's going to rank yet. We do have to actually make the drop down for this. So I can go ahead and do that really quickly. Now this is the page, find haunted hotels by state. We're going to go ahead and edit this one. So all we're going to do for this page, find haunted hotels by state, is I'm going to make a very, very simple page using what we already created. So I will simply add the image again right over here. And then I'm just going to take this little section and I'm going to paste it right here. And then I'm just going to say find haunted hotels by state, just so that it's not the same exact header one as my homepage header one. That's not really good. And from here, I am literally just going to take this entire section, right click on the widget, which is all of these kind of internal links. And I'm just going to go ahead and save it as a template. We can title it internal links and click site templates, save. And now we basically created it as a template that we can then pull up. Here it is, internal links. And then we're just going to click on this folder icon, go to templates, go to internal links, and then hit insert. Let's go ahead and apply that. And now we have it right over here. So that is literally all we're going to do. I don't really need to do much because again, I don't think people are going to use this page that much. Actually, maybe I will just leave it as is. I don't need to go through the trouble of creating a dropdown. I think this is perfectly fine. All right, so I just really quickly created a footer section. It is nothing fancy, just has these main menu items here. And I did add a little section here, real haunted experiences from hotel guests. I figured it's kind of like a testimonial. And I basically took some of the more convincing reviews that would convince people that these places are haunted to get people excited. And that's the only thing I really added here. But other than that, the homepage is finished. I'm going to go ahead and work on the About Us and the Contact Us. Might not really use the blog if I don't have any blog articles. I might just remove it for now. I'll whip these pages up really quickly. And then from there, that's pretty much a wrap. But let me do that and then come back once that's finished. So I just designed the About Us page here, and I basically just asked Claude Code to come up with a story, added a link here so it's not an orphan page, although it's fine that it is linked through the main menu, so that's actually not a concern, but it's very, very simple. Also created a very quick Contact Us where I did create a free Gmail account, hauntedhotelsofamerica@gmail.com, and then kind of like set that up. It's super easy. You literally just drag this form widget in Elementor if you're using this theme. And then here under the email section, you can change this to a field to your email as well as the from email here. That is pretty much it. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and do the last thing that I always do, which is set up my Google Site Kit. And it's super easy. I'm just going to go ahead and sign into the new Gmail account that I just created. All right, turn on the metrics, set up Search Console, set up Google Analytics, and that pretty much should be it. So this is my Google Search Console for Haunted Hotels of America. I'm going to go over to the website here. We're going to go over to sitemaps here. So we just need to submit our URL, which is automatically generated with WordPress, wp-sitemap.xml. And if you do want to check to see if this is correct, you can just copy and paste this and look it up. There should be a sitemap here. You should be able to click around, see all of the pages that you created. So here are all the ones that I have here. And I'm just going to go ahead and submit this. And this is what's going to tell Google to start crawling your website so it can get indexed and start ranking. Wouldn't be surprised if this took a few days probably to start indexing. That is the entire build, and we'll see how it performs. I'll be keeping an eye on Ahrefs and Google Search Console. That's pretty much it. So as I mentioned, I'm going to share some indexing issues and challenges that I've been facing for this particular directory. I personally don't run into a lot of indexing issues, but I do get a lot of questions from you guys and just random people who do have indexing problems. So I'm just going to walk you through my thought process and how I'm going to try and overcome this. So first, let's talk about the problem. When I first submitted my sitemap on September 18th, it was successful and it found 51 pages, nothing fishy there. But when I took a look at the pages that were being indexed, I noticed that these were not only not the location pages that I wanted to get indexed, but these are posts that I made and then deleted when I was using WPL import to import all of my images. I didn't really cover it in depth, but basically when you do use WPL import, in the very beginning, you choose an option. I used posts. So when it did import the images, it created a post for every single image as well. So I did go ahead and delete those. But for some reason, those posts, as you can tell, are now deleted, but they're being indexed and shown in my Google Search Console. So here's my Ahrefs, Haunted Hotels of America. If we go to top pages, there's 108 indexed pages according to Ahrefs, all of which are these posts that don't exist, right? 404 page error. So now the challenge is, how do I get Google to actually crawl my website and index the pages that I want, which are these state pages? So the first thing I did is I submitted another sitemap. And before I did that, I just installed Yoast SEO, which is a free WordPress plugin, which automatically creates a sitemap. The sitemap that WordPress automatically generated did not look like this. I noticed that there were two different URLs here. So I don't know if it made a difference. It was definitely not as clean as this sitemap that Yoast created. So that was my first experiment, was just to create a new sitemap and then resubmit the new sitemap to Google to refer refer to this one rather than the old sitemap. Now, the second thing I did is I went to Ahrefs and connected my haunted hotels directory to the Ahrefs webmaster tools, and that is completely free. I believe you can get access to the site audit as well, if I'm not mistaken, without paying for Ahrefs. So this is where I looked next. And if we just go over to all issues, I did just check under this indexable area, and I did notice that my pages had broken links. So I went ahead and fixed those. There's some orphan pages as well, but namely this is the one that I went to go and fix pretty much immediately. And basically it was just a matter of my internal links here. All these blacked out states, Delaware, Hawaii, Utah, Rhode Island, and North Dakota, they did have a link attached to it, but I realized I had no haunted hotels for those states, so they basically led to a 404 page. Now, the third thing that I did was around Reddit, and the idea here is that I wanted an initial boost in traffic to go to these website pages, and hopefully that would send Google some user engagement signals that would tell it to crawl and index my website. It's not really a guaranteed thing. I think this is definitely experimental, but intuitively, I feel like that could be helpful. There are some more advanced things that I can consider where I can basically disavow some of these pages that are being indexed, but that doesn't solve the problem of actually getting the correct pages indexed, which are these location pages. So I think I'm just being impatient, to be honest, but I just wanted to share my thought process. If you are also running into indexing issues, as long as you have good on-page SEO fundamentals, you have internal links, you have no orphan pages, no broken links, avoiding thin content, then I think you're okay. But for now, time will tell, and I appreciate you watching. Thanks so much for your support. Hopefully you learned something. Let me know in the comments if you did, and I will catch you in another video. See ya.